Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. In this video, we're working on the Pacer. I've been doing a lot of work on this car off camera before I decided to start actually shooting stuff for YouTube. So I thought maybe I'd take a minute and catch everybody up in case you missed the first video. It's a 1975 AMC Pacer X. Originally came with the 258 straight six and an automatic transmission. We decided to go ahead and build a Jeep 4.0, and we'll be backing that up with an AW4 4-speed automatic transmission. The point behind that is just to take this car from 1975 to the mid-90s, so that way we can run electronic fuel injection. You can see the motor build on the previous videos to this one, but this one we're going to be hanging the suspension up onto the front. I've done a bunch of work to refurbish the front suspension, so that'll be pretty fun. Let me take you through what's been done to the car up to this point. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know how well that Jeep motor turned out. So I didn't really want to drop that into a total rusty, nasty dumpster fire of an engine bay that this car originally had. So I went ahead and stripped everything out. I started out thinking I would just sand it quickly and spray it black and then move on. Once I got everything stripped out, it became clear that I was going to need to do some metal repair. And you can see some of the repairs I've done. This frame rail was completely rusted out. This whole area right here was where the battery sat, and it just leaked acid out over the years and basically rotted out this whole area. So I'm not a professional fabricator, obviously. I can barely weld to save my life, but we're not going for a frame off resto here. We're just going for nice, or at least functionally nice. As I stripped out the engine bay, just looking at the original brake lines made them break in half. They were so corroded, they just snapped as soon as you try to put a wrench on them. So I completely rebuilt the entire brake system. I also ended up replacing the master cylinder because the old one was all full of slime and nastiness. Then in order to do the rust repair, I ended up having to remove the entire front suspension. And that includes this section here, which is the K member, and everything that, like the steering, the springs, everything that has to do with the front suspension is attached to that thing. So that led to me taking apart the front suspension, and that's when I discovered that basically every bushing underneath the car was completely clapped out and needed to be replaced. So I ended up completely refurbishing all of the suspension parts underneath, and I'll show you where we're getting started. Here's all the parts for the front suspension. Basically, I took all the original stuff off and refurbished it. I didn't really have much choice in the matter here because it's really hard to find some of these parts. And I thought it might be interesting to kind of go over a couple of things here that were particularly a struggle. The first one are these bushings right here. And as you can guess from the name on the package, they are rare and hard to find. And they are bushings for the upper control arms, which are these big pieces here. They slide into these holes on both sides and latch on to this bar, which then is bolted into the car and holds everything together. So they're an integral part of the front suspension. Ultimately, I ended up finding them on eBay. Out of just pure dead luck, I found these things on eBay. A lot of these other parts you're not gonna find. Lower control arm, this big piece here, upper control arm, you're not gonna find. You can find them used, but you're not gonna find them new or refurbished. At least I wasn't able to. Went through and cleaned up and refurbished and painted all the bolts as well. So that's been done. Everything that I could replace new, I did. These ball joints are the originals. I'm keeping those. They actually feel really good and tight. And ball joints is the other part of this discussion. So these ball joints on the lower control arms and these ball joints on the upper control arms. Typically, if you were replacing those on your average run-of-the-mill car out there, they're somewhere between, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks a piece. Maybe, you know, maybe if you get some real high-end ones, you might spend upwards of 70 a piece. These ones are rare. I think I saw them on AMC Lives for like almost $300 each. So that kind of, when you're looking down the barrel of over $1,000, you start kind of going, you know what, I think I'm gonna try to make these ones work. So that's what I'm gonna do. They still feel good. They're in good shape. Normally you can get them all, they're all loose and rattly, and these are still real tight feeling, and they were full of grease, so we're in good shape there. A lot of stuff, all the stuff that you see that's black, I sandblasted and painted it. This is the sway bar. I even did the sway bar, what do you call these, the clamps or the straps that hold them. I did get new bushings for those. Those are right here. They're polyurethane. I've had good luck with polyurethane stuff. And then also new sway bar end links that are also polyurethane. Here's another one. This is a tie rod end. This is an integral part of your steering. I know this is not news for the car guys out there as far as what this is. However, this is an AMC Pacer one. You can't find them on any other AMCs for some reason. This was another one-off part for 5 years at AMC. These were, to replace these, I think the cheapest price I saw was somewhere around $150. Normally these are another $20 part or less on normal cars. All new bearings, brake pads, and then also I refurbished the dust shields. So most of the dust shields on these cars are completely smoked and rotted out. These ones were in really good shape, so I sandblasted them and kept them. So we'll put the dust shields back on, and I went ahead and got a whole new hub hardware kit to hold everything on. Probably better to replace this with something new than try to use the old stuff from 1975. Brake caliper, completely rebuilt. It's got a brand new piston in there, all new rubber, everything. I completely gutted these. Just hit it with some red caliper paint because that's what I had in stock. And I think it'll go together with all this other red stuff. And then this is just more steering parts. And then I just got some classic Gabriel shocks. There really wasn't a wide selection for shock replacements on this car, but that's what's going in there for now. So this will be where we're getting started. I think the very first thing I need to do is get on the shop press and knock these old bushings out so I can put in these new ones. After 2 hours of fighting, I finally got this in with those new rare parts bushings. So this whole unit is ready to be installed. And then I also got the new bushings installed in the lower control arms here. So let me get the camera all set up, and it's time to start putting this thing on the car. Yeah, there it is. So this will slide right up in here like this. I'm probably gonna have to move you guys out of my way. It's a little tight, a little snug. Push it up in there, and then we run bolts in. I'll show you the bolts. They're kind of interesting. They're kind of weird looking. I got these like oval things. I don't know if this is gonna work with this light. This oval washer, it's actually fixed to this end, and it's notched and fixed on this end, so they actually turn simultaneous. And what that's doing is it allows for an alignment person to adjust this in and out. So it actually helps adjust your camber on these. Kind of cool. All right, I'm gonna set it aside, probably time lapse me fighting with this thing, because I can tell it's gonna be a bit of a struggle. It's kind of a tight fit with the new bushings. I don't know if you can see it, but right in there, this right here, you know, the light, has these two lips, and that's what that little oval part of the bolt goes on, and that's what it's pushing up against when you're turning it to adjust. Kind of cool. So for all suspension on all cars, with fresh bushings especially, like this, we can get them in there and just kind of snug them up, but the car needs to be under its own weight before you actually torque down the bolts tight, because otherwise if I tightened it here and then the car's weight pushed up, it'll actually twist the rubber bushing inside and then it's going to wear it out faster. You don't want to have to replace things on this stupid car because it's hard to find things. So let's see here. So get some wrenches, mess up my nice paint on those, and that's driver's side installed. Let's throw in the upper. All right, that's finger tight. You kind of get the gist here. These things kind of go up and down like that. This is what holds your wheel. And then we got the spring right in here. And the spring, I don't know if I'm gonna do that tonight or if I'm even gonna do that on camera, because I gotta be honest with you, these coil springs that go in these, just like on my Camaro and some other cars I've worked on, are absolutely terrifying. I have to use a spring compressor. Spring compressor has to come up through this part here. It's got to go in the middle of the coil instead of the two on the outsides, which I prefer. And it's all under tension. I don't think there's a spring compressor in the world that isn't janky. And so taking them off was felt like it took a couple of years off my life, and I'm sure putting them on is going to be the same way. All right, I'm just gonna snug these guys up. It's a 13/16 on the nut, and on the bolt that can only turn a little bit, it's a it's a 7/8 on the nut, 13/16 on this. Okay, I don't know why I'm telling you, like anyone who's watching this is actually working on a Pacer, since I'm pretty sure there's only like 5 of us in the whole country that are working on Pacers. I'd like to have these a little more than finger tight when I go to put the spring in. Snug, she's still moving around. Tighten these guys up here, and then I think it's time for the spring. Not looking forward to that. Maybe I'll run the camera while I try to install these springs. At least then there'll be a witness to what happened when they find me out here. Anyway, all right, hang tight. Okay, I went ahead and got the spring compressor and everything, compressing the spring on the workbench, and I'm not feeling that great about it, but it is what it is. It's just a single Chinese-made spring compressor being held in place, sort of, with Harbor Freight zip ties, so very confidence-inspiring. So we're going to slide this back up in here. I'm going to take this bolt off, and then we got jack under there, so when it starts to go south, I got even more things to fly at me. All right, perfect. That's right where we want to be. Oh, God damn, I hate this. All right. So I'm trying to get it lined up in the groove down there. We'll jack this up. Maybe I can maneuver it. I got a little bit more room on the compressor. Let's make sure I'm in the groove down there. I'm nearly certain even pro mechanics hate this. They probably gotta, when they start their day, they're probably like, oh my God, I gotta do coil springs on someone's hoopty. Well, the good news is I can get the ball joint on right now. Oh, all right. We're in the safe zone now. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Jeez, it never works out for me. Yeah, she's a 7/8. Oh, went ahead and hit you. There you go, cattywampus. Get it all fixed here. Hang on. Now everything's stupid. I'm not used to working with a camera watching me. So these are called castle nuts. I don't know if you guys can see that. Pretty far out, but they kind of look like a castle. Hence the name. And it's kind of cool. They got these slots, and you just, once you get it torqued down to where you want it, you run a cotter pin through there for safety so it doesn't back off. And you're ready to go. This one needs a cotter pin in it too because I pulled that out. I took it off. Okay, so I will get that torqued back down to spec. But for now, we got a lot of threads on it, so I can let this down and start taking the spring compressor off. I gotta tell you, I cannot believe, I mean, we'll just see. I finished taking it out first, but usually just one of these is an hour fight for me. I almost never have this kind of luck with these things. Almost never. We're gonna leave that supporting it. We'll let the tension off the spring compressor. One last check to make sure everything's lined up where it should be. That is. Put this right where it's perfectly useless or in the way. Awesome. Can anyone see? It's kind of hard to see because all this stuff is black. It kind of blends in, but ooh. Ooh. She made a creepy noise just now. I think it was the compressor just letting go. I'll just go ahead and throw that on the floor. What else can we throw on the floor? Well, guess I can let this down. It's nice having this right at about face level, you know, that way when it flies out of there, it takes your head off. I'm just being melodramatic. It's actually pretty secure in there, I think. These are all tight, that's tight. Those are Loctited in. So I think we're in good shape here. Now I just gotta fight this spring compressor out of here. All right, here it is done. With the spring compressor off, everything's out, all the nonsense is out. I still just need to torque this bolt and double check this bolt and then run cotter pins through. And then the shock absorber goes in and gets installed. And we can start working on putting the whole front end together over here on this side. I think for now I'm going to run over and do the driver's side and get it to this point. So I'm kind of doing them about the same. It's time to start putting this system together. It's a whole bunch of parts, and I gotta tell you, I vaguely remember how to do it. So I've got the book open, which just so happens to have a full chart. Most cars, this whole thing is a unit, and you have your spindle sticking out, and they call the whole thing a spindle. It looks like this, except for this isn't removable usually. And so normally when you want to take this apart, you have to take this whole thing off. This one's a little different. I mean, maybe there's other cars like this, but this is the first one I've ever seen like this. Let's see here. Looks like we've got some parts to put together behind this thing and some parts to put together in front of this thing. And I've also got to try to balance all that and also do Loctite on these. I think what I'll do is I'll just run a big bolt in dry and then take it back out once I get all four of them in and just take them out one at a time and kind of get the Loctite on them that way. Alright, we're going to try this again. My microphone's died, so hopefully I'll get the audio figured out in editing. I actually filmed myself putting in the other side, and the audio, like the microphones gave up the ghost and I didn't know it. And I went on and on explaining this whole thing. and it got no audio, and then the camera decided to just shut off halfway through. So, new YouTuber life. Anyway, off camera, I've put this whole thing together, and you can see there's these 4 bolts sticking out of the back here. And literally all I have is the spindle itself, which is this long silver thing here, the dust cover, and then the caliper bracket. And it all kind of just goes on like this. Just gonna line up the holes and get the bolts in. There we go. So we got all those in. And then we've got on the back side, and I'll move the camera in a minute and show you this little stop. And then on the front, the part that hooks to the steering. So without this, we can't steer this wheel. So we'll get it on there, according to the book, and get this going. So you can, if you were looking, if you notice, some of these bolts are longer, and the longer ones are for the steering arm and some other stuff. But the shorties, we're done with those, so we can start putting bolts on those, and they're just kind of diagonal from each other. And then we'll throw in some, I'm gonna keep it all loose, but once it's all done, we'll Loctite it, and the book says 80 foot-pounds on there. So here's the back side of it. And I know it's hard to see because of lighting and all these parts are black, but here is that steering stop. It hits this little nubbin here, whatever you want to call it, a donger, and it just slides on like this. I got ahead of myself putting those bolts on there, or those nuts. I'll bring you around front again here. And we'll throw the steering arm on with the light so we can kind of see. And yeah, so now I gotta move all these bolts around because of course I put them in the wrong spot. And you'd think I would know where they go because I just did it on the other side. But you know what's funny is I actually took these in and out probably 4 times trying to figure out where all this stuff goes together on the other side. So it's just irony, I guess. I'm gonna repeat the whole thing. So the reason that's important is the longer ones are holding on to more stuff. I got that steering stop in the back. So I'll throw this bolt on real quick. And then I can throw some Loctite on these things. Thread locker, whatever you want to call it. And torque it down. All right, steering arm right there. Lines up with the steering. Throw on these nuts. And some red thread locker, since I don't plan on taking this off again after this. All right, hook wants 80 foot-pounds on all those. Just like that. That's going to do it for this video. I really appreciate everyone hanging out with me. Stay tuned for the next one where I'm going to wrap up everything on the front end. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the